Hey everybody, I'm Roy Petitfils. Wanted to spend some time with you today. I always say at the beginning of these live videos that it's just going to be a little while, but I really have no idea how long it's going to go. So bear with me. Today I'm excited to talk about something that I'm often speaking about a lot, and it's the anxiety epidemic with teens, and on how religion affects our anxiety. And so today I want to talk about why, especially for anxious teens who are being swept up in this anxiety epidemic that we have in our country today, how the practice of religion, and I'm going to make a distinction between religion and spirituality because I do believe that they're two different things, how the practice of religion can be so helpful for them. But you know, in terms of the anxiety epidemic, the research continues to come in that I think is just so important for parents to know that anxiety disorders are the number one most frequently diagnosed mental health disorder in young people today. In the last 10 years, we have gone from 1 in 10 teens being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And the latest research that I'm reading is somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 4. The last few articles that I've read have said that about 25% of young people between the ages of 12 and 17 meet clinically significant criteria, meaning that their symptoms are significant enough that they could very well be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, whether that's generalized anxiety disorder, separation anxiety, you name it, any number of anxiety disorders. And I'm going to leave post-traumatic stress disorder aside because that's another unique dynamic that I'm seeing from young people whose cortisol levels and stress levels are so high, consistently so high, that they're presenting with PTSD symptoms when there's no real one obvious trauma that they can describe to me and show to me, when they present in session. But back to my topic, focus, Roy. What I want to talk about today is the value of religion. And one of the things that good religious experience, and call it what you want, it's and again, I'm going to speak primarily from my Catholic Christian background and perspective, but it certainly transcends that. One of the key values that religious experience brings is this notion of ritual. And I think it's so important to understand that God, or your higher power, whatever you want to call God, the universal unconsciousness, God does not need us to participate in religious experience. Jesus said it, God made the Sabbath for man. He did not create man for the Sabbath, right? So God's not up in heaven. I think so many people have this very notion of this very insecure, feeble, God who's up in heaven. Go, oh my goodness, oh no, Roy didn't go to church on Sunday. Oh my God, I can't believe it, Roy. How could you, Roy, not go to church on Sunday? You ruined my day, and it's my day. Right? It's just this poor little insecure God, like God doesn't have enough other things to do. Like, I'm not hurting God's feelings if I don't go to church, right? I'm the one who needs to go, right? I'm the one who needs to go, not to check it off of some moral box because it was in the 10 Commandments or it's in the Catechism, right? I need to go to church because when I go and sit in the pews with people I like and don't like, who like and don't like me, sit next to one another, and we participate in a common ritual and a common shared experience. And I want to talk more about the psychological value of that experience in a second, right? There's something about that soothes my anxiety, and I want to explain that as much as anyone could dare to be arrogant enough to try to explain that. But, maybe we could make a movement toward explaining some of it. That soothes my anxiety. And I believe one of the reasons that our anxiety rates are epidemic in proportion in our country today is the exodus of so many people, especially in America, but in a lot of other first world countries, and Europe has been experiencing this for years, away from religious practice and away from religious experience, right? And so, one of the things that happens, is, and again, let me just speak primarily from my Catholic Christian perspective, is is one of the thanks Taylor for commenting about why zebras don't get stomach ulcers, a metaphor about how we lack the ability to shut down fight or flight. Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you so much for commenting, brother. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks, Michelle, Denise, everybody for joining in. I appreciate it. One of the things, though, that happens, when I go, into ritual is that I sit down, like especially in our Catholic, Christian ritual, there's these readings, right? Well, where are the readings coming from, right? They're not coming from the comic books. They're coming from the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures, the Old and New Testament. Again, remember my experience, right? Now, on any one of those readings usually doesn't reveal the whole pattern. But if we go week after week or day after day or however often you go, what you will eventually experience, right, what you will eventually experience and hear through your ears is this overarching pattern, right, which we're going to call the Paschal Mystery. That there is life, that there is good times, there is suffering, there is bad times, and then there is death. And then there is resurrection, right? And so we hear that in the liturgy of the word, which is what we Catholics call it. And then we move into the Eucharistic rite and we do that. Now, I know the priest does some of it, but theologically, we're all doing it, right? The priest is sacramentally doing the actions, but it's visible for us. And what we just heard, we now see with the host, which is blessed, broken, and shared. And on some level, often, and this is the key point, this is not something that we consciously are aware of that is happening when it's happening, but it is something that on an ontological, on a physical level, that we are experiencing, that we're participating in this pattern, right? That there are parts of our lives that are good, there are parts of our life that are bad, that we do good things, we do bad things. And ultimately, God invites us to share both of those in a life of vulnerability and a life of service, right? So that we see the Paschal Mystery and we see visibly and we participate in what is this more overarching pattern. Why does this matter? Here's why it matters. Because outside of sacred space, outside of good, healthy sacred space, and outside of good, healthy liturgy, and outside of healthy ritual, our temptation, in fact, I would argue, our inclination is to not experience and name the overarching pattern. Our inclination is to be a part of our own private, individual pattern, which all too often we see as arbitrary, capricious, and random. Right? And when we experience our lives as arbitrary, capricious, and random, that there's no meaning there because we're hardwired for meaning. We've known that long before Viktor Frankl wrote the opus on it. But we as human beings are hardwired for meaning. And when I cannot find that in my individual experience, I am going to look elsewhere for it. Right? And too often, unfortunately, we're not looking in the right places for it. We turn to substances, we turn to other people. That may be within you. And certainly today we see it. We see it in the cult of the celebrity. Well, I will find the pattern in this celebrity. Right? That's the pattern, right? And far too often, unfortunately, in our country, I believe that we've sold a bill of goods, which is the American dream, as the pattern, but that's not the pattern. That is the lie. You can work as hard as you want. You can come from any other country. You can immigrate here. You can work as hard as you want, and you can climb the ladder of success, right? Achieve, earn, accomplish, do whatever you want, and you will still suffer and die. And rise again. Right? The American dream says you achieve all of that and you will be happy. That's a lie. We need a new dream. In fact, we don't need a new dream. We need to reconnect to the old dream. And I believe that that's one of the things that we do, that we youth ministers, and so many of my friends I know are watching, that's what we've been trying to do for decades and decades, is connect young people and teenagers and young adults to the overarching pattern so that they don't have to experience their private little experience as arbitrary or meaningless. And that when we go to church and when we participate in healthy, even when we just sit in good sacred space, we're connecting to the pattern, right? Good liturgy, good ritual focuses us. It narrows our focus. It centers us. It calms us. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that all liturgy, all ritual, and all religious experience is good or healthy. I would argue that most of the ritual probably is, but when words, that there are a lot of homilies, that there are a lot of things that are said, that are printed, that are handed out, that aren't necessarily always good and healthy, that can be very shaming. I also think that a lot of folks can hear shame when it's not intended or even necessarily communicated, and that they can leave ritual, they can leave mass, they can leave liturgy or religious service not feeling good. But for the most part, when we leave good ritual, good religious experience, we leave there feeling better. I mean, I can't remember the last time, I don't ever remember walking out of church going, damn, that was a waste of my time. I feel like a worse person now than I did before I walked in. Like, I really wished I hadn't gone in there. Now, I do believe that some people have that experience, but I do believe it's rare. We walk out and we feel better. We feel less anxious, we feel less nervous, we feel less worried, less stressed, less overwhelmed. Not because, and again, I believe in all the sacramentology, and I believe, in the sacramental nature and the, ontology of it all. I get it. I get all the theological stuff. But on a psychological level, I leave there less worried because I have, on some level that I often cannot understand or articulate, I have connected bodily, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually to the bigger pattern. That no matter how bad it is right now, right? No matter how bad it is right now, it will get better, right? Even though I'm in the tomb, I know that resurrection's coming, even though it doesn't feel like it. Even though when I walk out of those doors within 20 minutes, I might feel just as bad, but at least for that 45 minutes to an hour and a half while I was in those doors, that I was able to connect to the pattern, right? And so if you're one of the parents out there wondering, why do I bring, why do I go to Mass, or why would I even want to bring my kid to Mass? I want you to strongly consider that this is one of the most important reasons, right? It's not because we're making God happy. I do believe we're also forming good habits in them. It's healthy. We were never meant to live out the Christian journey on our own and be a part of a community. I'm also not naive to think that so many people, just because you go to church at a place, that you're part of a community, right? Because I know that is not the experience of many. And that has been, I'd say, for most of my experience in my adult life. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with Roy. Now, I'm not blaming it on the community, but I didn't necessarily feel like I'm part of a community, right? But that is part of it. But that when we bring young people to church, whether they want to go or not, whether they need to sit with you or not even. I know a lot of parents try to fight that battle. Well, we want to sit together with the family. Good. If that's a battle you want to fight, charge on, right? But that they're in there, right? And they are getting on a level that they don't even fully understand. We don't even fully understand, but that we learn in our bodies because we're doing it. That soothes our anxiety, and we realize that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. The individual soul was never meant to bear the amount of anxiety that we're bearing, right? And I think that is one of the great catastrophes in our modern era, where we're getting so isolated, so disconnected, so individualized, so disconnected from religious experience, whatever that experience is, that on some level, even though we don't fully realize it, I'm trying to bear the burden. I'm trying to and Jesus said it. He's a burden. He said it's light, but he still said it's a burden, that I'm trying to hold it on my own, and we weren't created to hold it on our own. We can't do it. It's always taken a village, a community of believers, to be able to hold the gift, right? The gift that is faith, the gift that is who we are, that the blessing of who we are, the brokenness of who we are and of our human condition, right? And it's taken us to experience that within a community so that we can share it within the community and receive it from the community, right? And so if that's one of the things you wonder, why am I bringing my kid to Mass? Why am I going? Well, I can't get anything from the homily because I'm holding my baby, and I have so much compassion on parents like that. That even though you may not even be able to hear the homily, what you're doing, where you're moving, all of those gymnastics, right, is telling your soul, right, on a very deep level, that everything may not be okay in this life, but one day to come, it will be okay. that while it feels like everything's falling apart, and that's our experience, God is holding all of those disparate parts together. That we go there, and on some level, all of the disintegrated, disparate parts of our lives, all of our multiple selves, right? My nice self, my angry self, my selfish self, my generous self, all of those are integrated in good sacred space and in good healthy ritual and healthy liturgy. And so, of course, teens don't want to go. They always want to be doing something else. Of course, a lot of adults don't want to go. And to be perfectly honest, I say this publicly all the time. I don't know why I wouldn't say it in Facebook world. Most Sundays, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to Mass. I don't want to go to liturgy. I'm exposed all week long, right? Whether I'm exposed here in counseling, even though I'm with one person, I'm wide open because that's how I do therapy, right? My heart is out there, and I'm vulnerable all day long. When I'm speaking, my heart is out there, and I'm vulnerable all day long. And on Sunday, I want to close. It's my time that I just want to be with Max, Ben, and Mindy, and I just want to shelter up. But I know that I need to go and do that, irrespective of whether the music's good, the homily's good, or anything else is good, or the parking. I was just at a church where, everyone was in a fracas about the parking, right? And I'm not going to come here until you guys get the parking figured out. It's not about the parking. Good people, by the way. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you get a chance, please share. Please continue to pray for me in my ministry and on all of my different efforts and things that I do. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Jennifer, Cindy, Stacy, and all of you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you later. God bless.